What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the King Closers Formula. I am the King Closer, RJ Bates III, coming to you live in this beautiful Tuesday at 2:22 p.m., just like we do every other Tuesday. How about I mute my phone so we don't hear myself talking, echoing in the background? That being said, what do you guys want to talk about today? In the wise words of the great Cody Rhodes, I think we're going to be talking about a situation I just had with a daisy chainer and how I had to terminate an assignment and how the whole thing played out. I didn't really plan on making a YouTube video about this, but I decided to do that after I made a post on my Facebook. And it's funny because I decided I was going to do today's video on this topic because I made the post. Let me see here. I made the post February 26th. So, a while ago, and it gained a little bit of traction where some of the response was negative, which caught me off guard because as I was making the post, I was thinking, anybody that wholesales correctly is going to understand where I'm coming from. But that wasn't the case. Not everybody felt like I was in the right, which some of the time it just needed a little bit more context. I just had to kind of explain my position on it. And some people still, even with the context, disagreed with my take on it. And now it's a little bit concerning because I am regularly making videos and talking about regulations, how wholesaling is viewed as an industry, why regulations are coming down, why things are becoming harder, and doing things the right way. Yet some people in the wholesaling world, despite everything that's going on, with new regulations coming down, more transparency needed, more disclosures, aka more paperwork. In the words of some people on my post, worthless, flimsy pieces of paper. It's kind of shocking. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to make this video today. It's a good topic. We'll talk about it. I'll do it live so I can answer any questions that people have about this situation. We're going to go through the entire situation, everything that took place, so you'll have all of the context. But even with that being said, today, just 20, 30 minutes before, I received more comments on my post disagreeing with my stance on this. Basically saying that daisy chaining deals is perfectly okay. I should have respected the fact that this person breached their contract, breached the agreement, didn't pay attention to the flimsy pieces of paper, which is just wild perspectives. And so it makes me even want to talk about this more because as an industry, this is a problem that we feel like this is okay. So let's break this entire situation down. And I'll even give you the insight to how this whole thing took place. Sam Weaver, Titanium University member, been in TU for several months, great kid, works his ass off, great work ethic. He ends up during the December challenge that we ran inside of Titanium University on Titanium Investments General Manager Danny Herman's team. So we had different teams, different team leaders, nothing really company oriented. It was all just TU members, round robin. Sam ends up on Danny's team, and Sam worked his tail off and really impressed Danny. And so at the end of Santa's Little Helper Challenge, we offered Sam a position to do acquisitions for Titanium Investments, which he accepted. So he's been with us for a couple of months now. This lead comes in through a PPL provider, It's a land deal in Dallas, Texas. He does a great job using the closer's formula, goes through, gets a signed contract. It's a really good deal. It's not only a really good deal, but it's in our original market, Dallas, Texas. That is where we have done more deals than we've done anywhere else in the United States. And so not only are we pumped up that it's a good deal, but we're pumped up about the location. We're pumped up about the fact that it's a vacant land deal. There's tons of new builds going on around it. We can clearly see that there's plenty of end buyers surrounding this area, utilizing investor base. And so we're excited about this. We're just going to go in. We're going to be able to find the end buyers very, very easily, not a mass marketing effort. And so Justin May, who is also originally TU member, impressed us. We offered him a position to do dispositions for Titanium Investments. He takes this deal on. The night before, the same day that we locked it up, I walk into Cassie's office. She's got a little mini fridge, keeps waters, Red Bulls, whatnot in there. I walk into her office. I hear her doing her end-of-day meeting with Danny Herman. And he mentions tomorrow that Dallas deal is getting assigned. So I stop and I kind of, whoa, we got a Dallas deal. What's up with that one? And Danny and Cassie are like, we didn't want to tell you. We just wanted to surprise you, but we got a really good deal in Dallas, Texas. It's a vacant land deal, blah, blah, blah. We think we're going to be able to move this for about a $40,000 assignment fee. Awesome. Love those. Good job. So I jokingly say, if that thing's not assigned by tomorrow morning or by tomorrow at noon, I'm going to go assign that thing myself. So next morning, Danny's running the start of day meeting with the team, and he uses my words. And he's like, hey, team, listen, RJ said if this deal's not assigned by noon, he's going to come in, he's going to assign it himself. So Justin jumps right on it. Starts reaching out to buyers, gets a buyer on the line. Buyer says, yep, I'll take it. Boom, $40,000 assignment. Now he goes through the vetting process. This buyer's an in buyer. He's going to develop there, wants to take it down, understood everything about it, had no problem with our price point whatsoever. Boom, signed assignment. Now, when we send an assignment, there's a couple of different things that I want you guys to understand. First of all, the way that our assignment agreement is written up, it cannot be assigned again. So you cannot assign our assignment. That is clearly written into the agreement. So that's one. Two, anytime that we get a signed assignment with an end buyer, we discuss with them. It's a negotiable term based off of the day of the week and the time in which the assignment's getting signed on when the non-refundable earnest money will be deposited. So in this scenario, we talked about it. We know exactly when the non-refundable earnest money needs to be deposited. Everything gets signed. Transaction coordinator sends everything over to the title company. So I was literally this morning looking at the email chain. I'm seeing transaction coordinator sent over, sign purchase and sell agreement with the seller. Next day, signed assignment with the end buyer. The next day, the next business day, I believe this went over a weekend. The next business day, hey, has the end buyer deposited earnest money? No. Hey, just a couple hours later. Hey, just following up, want to verify, have you received the non-refundable earnest money from the buyer? No. Have you heard from the buyer? No. Okay, at that point in time, Justin reaches out to the end buyer. No response. By the end of the day, hey, just following up again, has the buyer deposited his non-refundable earnest money? No. Okay. Next morning, any sign of those funds? No. Have you heard from the buyer? No. We reach out to the buyer. No response. Friendly little nudge text message like, hey, we need that non-refundable earnest money deposited or we're going to have to terminate the agreement. No response, no earnest money deposited. So we terminate the assignment agreement with the end buyer. Now, come to find out, that end buyer was not an end buyer. It was a daisy chaining wholesaler. Okay. So we terminate that agreement with the end buyer or the daisy chaining wholesaler. We then go back to investor base and start reaching out to other end buyers. Now, one of the things that I was accused of in my Facebook post was, how could I be so lucky to, on my first dial, to reach out to the actual end buyer that the daisy chaining wholesaler had found? That's not the case. We reached out to numerous buyers in the area. Like I said, vacant land, quite a few number of new builds going on there. There's quite a few end buyers for us to reach out to. So we reached out to several end buyers in the area, one of which we connect with, and he says, wait, what's the address? We tell him, and he says, well, that's funny. I was just under contract on that property. It just got terminated because the wholesaler that I was under assignment with said he lost the contract. Are you guys the ones that are actually direct to seller? We are. So you have a contract. I still really want to buy this piece of land. In fact, this is what I was under contract for. And it was, of course, because it got daisy chained, more than what we sold it for. I want to buy it. I want to buy it for that price. So if you're really the contract holder, send me the assignment. I want the deal. I've already deposited my earnest money at this title company, which was a different title company. Now, another thing that I got accused of is that the title company alerted us to what was happening. That didn't happen. Never once did a title company tell us that there was another buyer or who that buyer was, what their contact information, or the fact that they had deposited earnest money. It was a whole different title company. He told us that. The end buyer did. Because one of the things that he wanted to negotiate in the assignment was, I need to get my earnest money back from that title company, and that's the earnest money that I want to use with you guys. So I'm waiting on that. It's been terminated. It's going to get released to me, but I don't know if I'm going to have it today in time to be able to wire it out to you guys. So I need a little bit extra time to deposit my non-refundable earnest money. Again, transparency, honesty about what was taking place. So the end buyer for the daisy chaining wholesaler ends up becoming our buyer. Now, I found that to be ironic. We do a significant amount of transactions across the United States. I can't quite remember a scenario in which we assigned a deal to a daisy chainer without knowing it, and then upon terminating that for breach of a contract, finding the daisy chainer's end buyer. Now, here's the thing. The reason why we terminated the assignment is because the non-refundable earnest money from the daisy chaining wholesaler was not deposited. Also, we had a right because the fact that they assigned an assignment that could not be assigned. That was also a breach of the assignment agreement. But that wasn't the reason why, because we didn't even know that was happening. We terminated because of the breach of contract per our rights. That's why we have contracts and signed legally binding agreements. I have to protect my company, and I have to protect the seller who is motivated to sell this to us for a reason. So anytime I'm assigning my rights to that contract to someone, I have to protect myself and the seller, which we do that through non-refundable earnest money deposits and timelines. That didn't happen. So we exercised our right to terminate that and then found the daisy chaining wholesalers end buyer. Now, what's funny about this is that earnest money deposit from the end buyer was deposited. So I actually don't know why the daisy chaining wholesaler did not deposit their earnest money. I don't know if it was because they were trying to get that release to them then be able to deposit it at our title company. Maybe that was a scenario. I don't know why. There's been zero communication. We have not been able to get a hold of this person. That's why we terminated it. And so when I made the post on Facebook and people were up in arms about the fact that I circumvented the daisy chaining wholesaler and kicked them out of the deal, it's like, what wild assumptions. What a strange way to look at this and who to defend. The person that signs agreements, lies, and then doesn't hold up and then goes in breach of contract multiple different ways. And so we signed the new agreement with the new buyer, and now it's set to close. And I make this post talking about it, and I'll just read one of the comments on here. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. You had to market the property to find a daisy chainer, right? That person then finds an end buyer. Now you're saying that when you start marketing the deal again, the very first buyer you call just happens to be a brand new buyer. Someone who wasn't on your list the first time, but now somehow is. All of that is just incorrect. But okay, we'll get down to it. That's hard to believe. I'd be willing to bet a title company gave you a heads up that the contract had been assigned for more money, along with the new buyer's contact information. None of that ever happened. Then that same title company tells you there was no earnest money. And suddenly this new buyer appears on your list in round 2. No, the title company didn't tell us. We repeatedly asked the title company because that's part of our process to make sure that we're not left screwing over sellers or left with a buyer who's not actually a buyer. 2 other observations. First, you're selling a $7,000 guru course, yet some random wholesaler was able to wholesale your own deal for $15,000 more than you did. Second, you daisy chain deals yourself fairly often. So criticizing someone else for doing it seems inconsistent. 1, Titanium University is not a guru course. Does it include a course? Yes. Is that what we sell? No. We do not sell education. We sell implementation and community. For anyone that's a part of Titanium University, they will absolutely tell you that. It's not about the education that comes along with that. And the fact that I would get attacked by a fellow wholesaler for assigning a deal to an end buyer for a better deal for the end buyer tells you everything that you need to know about the shitstorm that the wholesaling industry is in today. That's our job. Our job is to solve sellers' problems and to provide great deals to end buyers, not to squeeze every last drop of the juice out of the deal before an end buyer takes it. That being said, this buyer was adamant about the fact that he wanted to buy this property at that price. He was like, listen, I'm ready to go. I want the deal. Send me the assignment right now. I was ready to close. So yes, we are a for-profit organization. But when we set the price, we actually set our price at lower than that. And as a wholesale operation, we have several rules. One of which, it's first come, first serve. We do not do bidding wars with our end buyers. So when this original buyer came to us and said, I will take it at the price at which you're asking, we assign the deal. That is how we run our wholesale operation at Titanium Investments. I don't apologize. I'm not embarrassed. I willingly chose to put this out on social media to try to bring light to some of the negative things that are happening inside of our own industry. Yesterday's video was about how wholesalers are literally burning down our own industry because of shit like this. This is what I'm talking about. And the fact that other wholesalers are defending these actions. Now, let's talk about the fact that some people believe that doing a joint venture is the exact same thing as daisy chaining a deal. That is absolutely false. The difference is daisy chaining a deal is when you're not transparent about what's happening, you don't have equitable interest in a property, or in this scenario, you breach contracts. This is why it has a negative light on it. Had this person come to me and said, hey, I have a buyer that will pay more for this property. I could give you your price if you can give me a JV agreement, and I'll go get this buyer at more. You don't have to give me any of your own assignment fee. We would have done that. Wouldn't have had to deposit earnest money at all. And that same end buyer would be buying the deal, and this daisy chainer wouldn't have been a daisy chainer. We would have had a JV agreement, and he would be making $15,000. The issue wasn't transparent about what the true intentions were, did not hold up his end of the signed agreement, didn't deposit the earnest money, and then also assigned a document that was not assignable. Those are issues. So for people to say that a JV is the same as a daisy chain is incorrect. That joint venture agreement is what gives your company equitable interest and allows you to assign your rights to an end buyer. That's why we do it. It's how you don't get cut out of deals. It's how you make sure that you're protected and also that you're doing things legally correct. Now, later on, when I responded to this, the response is that there is no difference between daisy chain and JV. Either way you take it, you're not direct to seller. And that flimsy piece of paper in between means nothing, which you just also further prove by terminating and reselling. Okay. It's not a flimsy piece of paper. It's a legally binding document that all real estate transactions have involved. It's what literally tells the title company what to do on the transaction. What is the chain of events? Seller signs a purchase and sell agreement with a wholesaler. That purchase and sell agreement is assignable. Wholesaler assigns his or her equitable interest to an end buyer. That's what happened. That's the chain of event on the flimsy pieces of paper. That signed assignment was not assignable. I don't know why the daisy chaining wholesaler went to a different title company, because that was one of the questions I got at. I don't know. I don't know why they thought that was going to work or how they were going to make it work. I don't run a daisy chaining wholesale operation, so I don't understand the ins and outs of why they did that. But that assignment was never assignable. Maybe they were going to try to double close it. I don't know. The end buyer did say he signed an assignment, not a purchase and sell agreement. So that kind of rules out a double close to me, but who knows? The earnest money was never deposited. These things are what made that flimsy piece of paper become terminated. Not me looking at it and saying, this flimsy piece of paper means nothing. No, I really wouldn't have had much of a leg to stand on if the daisy chainer had deposited earnest money and then tried to double close this deal. Because the two mistakes were no earnest money deposit and then an assignment on a non-assignable assignment agreement. So if the daisy chainer had not made those mistakes, I wouldn't have been able to terminate that. That's what I'm trying to explain. It was the mistakes along the way and the lack of transparency and honesty. Why would you want to run a business that way? This is the issue where, as an industry, we actually believe that this is okay. When there's a correct way to run a wholesaling operation where you don't have to do these things. I've never had to daisy chain a deal. I've done many joint ventures, but never a daisy chain this way. It's not necessary. And so for me, as someone that is trying to make a change for our industry to where the regulations that come down are more about disclosure and transparency with sellers, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is when they say you have to now become licensed to do this. Why do you think they want us to become licensed? Well, one, I think it's because they want to grab money. Two, it's because realtors are held to a standard when it comes to what? Paperwork. This right here. It has to go through a broker, and a broker has to make sure that you're doing things correctly. This right here is the issue when things are not done correctly. And they're saying, I mean, imagine how many deals right now across the United States are being daisy chained incorrectly. I have no idea how many. I pride myself on running an operation that's pretty good at what it does. And this mistake still happened right inside of our own house, inside of our own main market, Dallas, Texas. So I had no problems terminating that agreement because of the breach of contract. I have massive problems with the fact that as an industry, we looked at this and we defend those actions and we believe it's okay. And it wasn't just one person. It was multiple people. Multiple people. None from my community. None from Titanium University. But from other places, it absolutely was heavily defended. And like most things, it was only a handful of people. The majority of comments on there were like, hey, you did the right thing. Good job. Laughed about it. But people from other communities sat there and said, I agree with the daisy chainer. I think you're in the wrong, RJ. So my question to you is, if this message that I'm sharing with you over the past 28 minutes, if you're like, hey, that actually, I agree with RJ, maybe go take a look at the comments on my Facebook post from, what was the date? February 26th. Go look at the comments. Look at the communities that those negative comments are from, and then ask yourself, is that a community that I actually want to be a part of? Do I want to follow leaders in that community that suggest that this is the correct way that the wholesaling industry should run itself? Because I can guarantee you, if you agree with that, the regulations are only going to become worse and worse for us as an industry. So make a decision now before in a few years it looks completely different. And we're first a licensed realtor, then a wholesaler. All right, let's look at the comments. Any questions, concerns, thoughts? Drop it in the comments. Let's see what you guys got. Danny says, no governing body for wholesalers, so nothing for Trek to make money on. Completely agree. How could I be in the wrong when the daisy chainer themselves couldn't perform? That is a great question. I think, honestly, the majority of people that disagree with my decision just made the assumption that I just circumvented the daisy chainer and went directly to the end buyer and cut him out of the deal, which is a wild accusation to make, but also tells you a lot about where we are as an industry, that would even be a thought, that that's something that I would do. I blame whoever promoted bird dogging to be more popular. Well, I recently made a video about my thoughts about bird dogging. I disagree with it. Bird dogging used to have a different meaning than it does today. But I will also say, this was not bird dogging the way that it's being taught today. This was classic daisy chaining, and there is a difference. Steven said, that's wild, to be honest, if you just sit there and think about it. It absolutely is, Steven. It blows my mind that people would come after me. Specifically, the one person today is, I shared this in one of my comments to him. We did a joint venture agreement in 2022 together. He brought me a deal in Ohio. We signed a JV agreement. We assigned it for a $20,000 assignment fee. I don't think the deal closed because the seller couldn't perform due to back taxes. But as his joint venture partner on that deal, we did everything above board, exactly the way that it was supposed to be done, correct paperwork, and moved the deal in Ohio at a low price point for a $20,000 assignment. And then here we are 4 years later, he's attacking me on social media. Wild. People just don't want to follow the protocols and also being scary like they're doing something illegal. Well, I would almost want to ask this person, like, did they actually understand what they were doing was illegal, not correct, that they weren't abiding by the legally binding agreement that was signed? That's what I would want to ask them. And then also, why would you want to run a business this way? Like, I've been in business now for over a decade inside of Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm probably not going anywhere anytime soon. And so you look at that, and the first time that we're ever going to do business together, this is how you transact. Guess who you're never going to do business with again? Me. And that end buyer. That end buyer, like, he burned that relationship. It's crazy. Some of the people in the comments on that post won't find themselves on my list for sending deals to in DFW. Agreed, Danny. That's what I'm saying. Like, why defend these actions and just purposely choose to burn potential relationships? People don't come after anyone that's not making moves. Keep it moving, big dog, and let the people hate. That's right. Phil Clark, if Title were to think that there are 2 live contracts out there, you better believe they are looking into it. Title doesn't get in a race to the recording office with other title companies. So, Phil, on this one, on that level, it was very odd that he chose to go with another title company. That's why I can absolutely see how you would do a double close at a different title company. Specifically going all the way back to 2015, 16, 17, when we did a lot of deals on the MLS. We would contract a deal, and the seller would mandate that you have to use Republic Title or Alamo Title. And the seller would be paying those closing fees. So they were like, hey, we want to choose the title company. Okay. Well, those title companies, like specifically Old Republic, would not allow a double close, a pass-through double close. And so what I would do was I would still double close, but I would get a signed purchase agreement with my end buyer and open title at my title company. And so it would still function just like a pass-through double close. It just involved two different title companies. And so I would have to eat the closing costs with my title company. Seller would pay it at their title company. My title company would get the funds from the end buyer and then wire to the original title company. That can go down. But with an assignment, I don't see how that was ever going to work. That's why I asked the end buyer, like, was this an assignment or was it a purchase agreement? And it was an assignment. So I don't know how they thought that was going to work out. How did he get on your buyer's list from investor base? Has he purchased property before and never has wholesaled? So he was on investor base as an end buyer. So I do believe he has bought. I mean, he clearly has purchased properties before. I don't know if he's never wholesaled. I mean, that was never a conversation that we had. I mean, it was all about his intentions. And then, like I said, the communication has stopped. Unrelated question, but any tips on dispo in rural areas? Got a couple of contracts from property leads nationwide. So one, investor base is what we mainly use for dispoing in rural areas. The other thing that I would say is before you get the contract, make sure that you're checking for the buyer activity in the area to make sure that there is buyer activity. So you don't end up in a situation where it's like, okay, well, I've got this signed agreement, but now I don't know if there's buyer activity there. But if you go on the investor base, you should be able to see who the end buyers are, what they purchased for, to get their contact information. And then it's just going to be aggressively getting them on the phone and having conversations. Hopefully, if they truly are rural, because there's different definitions of what is a rural property and not, you bought it steep enough of a discount to where the end buyers are willing to go to that location. Because typically when you have to dispo in a rural area, you're also going to need to pull buyers from the closest metro area to that city. It might not be an end buyer in that neighborhood. Like, for example, this deal in Dallas, it was super easy for us to find the end buyers for the vacant lots right there that had done new construction. Rural, I mean, you're probably going to find some buyers and then have to go to some of the surrounding areas, maybe even the largest metro area, and see if those buyers are willing to travel out to this location. All right, let's see here. Stephen, there were quite a few TU members' comments. None of them disagreed with what took place there. Daisy chainer should have been up front before he had the end buyer sign. I think the daisy chainer should have been up front before he signed the agreement with us. Then it wouldn't have been an issue then. So, that being said, listen, where we are as an industry, these types of things are going to continue to cause the effects of the regulations, the disclosures that are coming down, and then the wild regulations that are potentially happening in places like Arizona, the wild regulations like in Oregon. Why does Oregon want us to be a licensed wholesaler? To govern us, to make sure that we're doing things correctly and not doing things this way. We're doing it to ourselves. And I think at this point, we have given enough ammunition to the lobbyists and the realtor community to come after us. We deserve it at this point. And I thought we were moving in a more positive direction. I know this is a small sample size, but it is highly disappointing to see some people's perspective on this and to say they disagree. I would love to see a wholesaler get a property under contract that disagreed with this. get a property under contract, assign it for a $40,000 assignment fee, and then have your buyer not deposit earnest money, not communicate with you, and write it out. I don't know anybody in their right mind that would look at that and say, we're just going to ride this train out and hope that this person either one starts communicating with us, starts communicating with the title company, hopefully deposits earnest money, or look at it and say, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect my family, my company, my seller, my contract. I'm going to take this back, and I'm going to go find someone that will perform and will protect my investment in this. So everyone that disagreed with me on that post, let me know how you run your business when non-refundable earnest money is not deposited. Let me know how you actually respond when you put in an assignment agreement that's not assignable and you find out that they did assign it. No communication whatsoever, Derek. We sent over the termination, no response, and he terminated with the end buyer. I'm assuming at that point, he absolutely knew what he had done incorrectly and knew he didn't have a leg to stand on. I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that he's doing on a pretty high volume level, and it just didn't really mean a whole lot to him. I would think $15,000 would mean a lot, but apparently it doesn't. So, that being said, if you agree with my decision, like the video, leave me a comment below. Tell me, how would you have handled this situation? Would you have handled it the same way as me, or would you have chosen something different? Steven says, so if they want you to be a licensed wholesaler, do you just stop getting deals from that market? No, you just, if you're going to do deals, figure out how you do it legally, how you do it correctly, and then do it that way. So, Steven, in this circumstance, if I'm going to do a deal in Oregon, I would just partner up with Garen Castle or Stephanie Bevan, who are both licensed wholesalers in the state of Oregon. He didn't have earnest money, and title wasn't transferring that second buyer's EM. Great job. Thank you, Phil. So like I said, if you agree, like the video, let me know in the comments. We'll see you guys tomorrow.